And Joe, this is what's so concerning is that in 2023, before I testified before Congress in April, the New York Times, okay, this is the New York Times. This isn't the Washington Times, right? Mm-hmm. The New York Times reported that the agency in just a 2-year period had lost track of 85,000 children.
This story is so hard. I just gotta be honest with you. This story is so stinging hard.
And then with tax dollars, we're distributing these vulnerable children to known criminals. I don't believe that the U.S. government wanted that information to get into the hands of the American people.
By the way, my name is Joe McClain. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Whistleblowers. We're continuing our series on whistleblowers today.
For your tireless efforts to protect migrant unaccompanied children from abuse, neglect, labor trafficking, sex trafficking, and other unspeakable horrors.
Tara Rodas has testified on Capitol Hill. She has participated in round talk conversations. She helped the Department of Homeland Security and HHS with their unaccompanied migrant program. She volunteered to do so because she wanted to make sure those kids got the best opportunity at a home in America. Turns out she found out that they were giving kids to gang members, like MS-13 gang members, for instance. So she said something about this, and for her trouble, she was shown the door. In fact, she had to have armed guards escort her across the country home because her life was being threatened now. Interesting turn of events, wouldn't you say? Just the other day, you might recall, we had a great conversation with a whistleblower from Department of Homeland Security who raised awareness that we seem to be complicit in providing unaccompanied minor children coming across our southern border to criminal thugs, to gang members, and to all kinds of bad actors. And we need to raise awareness about this. This is a horrible thing. And we've invited Tara Rodas to be on the team today. She has testified on Capitol Hill more than once, actually. Tara, good morning to you. Thank you for your time today. We really appreciate having you on the team.
Joe, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate that you are sounding the alarm on what we now know is government-sponsored, taxpayer-funded child trafficking. So thank you so much. God bless you for what you're doing.
It sickens me that my tax dollars are cooperating in this, which is going on still today. Is that correct? I mean, it still happens today.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it is more sophisticated today than it began back in 2012. So, yeah, absolutely. It is absolutely unbelievable that the United States government has become the middleman in what we now know is a large-scale child trafficking operation. Tens of thousands of children are gone. Yes.
I've heard you say in other interviews that you were on loan. You had volunteered to help the HHS with this program. You had the best intentions in mind. And you had actually brought up some issues that they didn't seem to have a problem with. But it was when you brought up the MS-13 case that triggered them most. Why would that be?
I think they just did not want the American people to know that there were a sophisticated network of criminals in the United States who were luring the children here and using American tax dollars. We were taking these children from the border, right? We're bringing these children from countries all around the world, mainly Guatemala, but we are bringing these vulnerable children here because these gangs are luring them here. They're operating here in the U.S. And then with tax dollars, we're distributing these vulnerable children to known criminals. I don't believe that the U.S. government wanted that information to get into the hands of the American people.
Okay, fair enough. They don't want that information to get out. But wouldn't that mean then they would go and fix this and prevent this from ever happening again? I mean, like, I can understand on one hand if you say, oh, that's so embarrassing, that's horrible, let's keep that quiet. But then they went and fixed it and it never happens ever again. But that doesn't seem to be the case. So how do we explain that?
Well, sadly, The Bible tells us that money is the root of many evils, right? This program last year was over $6 billion for the year. And this year it's going to be over $7 billion. It's on track to be about $7.3 billion. There are thousands of NGOs that are facilitating this. And that is a big part of the problem, is that many people like me believed that this was a humanitarian problem. We believed that the crisis on the southern border was humanitarian. That is absolutely what I believed when this call from the administration went out to every federal employee and said, look, we have a crisis at the southern border. We need people to help. With these children, we need your help to these children who are showing up alone at our border. We need you to help care for them until we can place them with their families here in the United States. And I'm a Spanish speaker. My husband is from El Salvador. And I thought, what better thing could I do? And so I volunteered to leave my agency and go help with this crisis, believing that children were going to their families. And sadly, that's not what's happening. And so it's a money-making scheme. And sadly, people and companies, organizations, NGOs, contractors are getting rich off of the lives of the children, as well as the cartels and evil actors here, including MS-13, 18th Street Gang, and other serious transnational criminals.
How long has this been going on, and how many kids have been affected by this?
Well, more than 500,000 children have crossed the U.S. border. More than 500,000. And Joe, this is what's so concerning, is that in 2023, before I testified before Congress in April, the New York Times, okay, this is the New York Times. This isn't the Washington Times, right? Mm-hmm. The New York Times reported that the agency in just a 2-year period had lost track of 85,000 children. Lost track. No idea where they are. In 2 years, how do 85,000 children go missing without a trace? How is that possible?
That is so horrific. It's even hard to wrap your head around that. I mean, I think most people, they don't really want to know more of the details about these types of stories. I think it is so disgusting. It's so horrible that we just have to turn around and move about our life, I suppose. And yet these kids, 85,000, you said, will we ever see these kids again? Could we, if we wanted to, if we were determined today, no amount of resources mattered to save these kids, could we do that?
That's the very important issue, because sadly, many of the children are no longer with us. They've passed away in jobs that they were qualified for and in other terrible means. So some of the children are not alive. And the president, former president, has mentioned that, and members of Homeland Security investigations who I've talked to about these cases, they're like, Tara, we really appreciate what you're doing, but you need to prepare yourself and understand that a trafficking victim lives between 2 and 7 years. And so some of these children are not alive. Now, that is a very hard reality. And at the same time, today, if the federal government turned over the names of the sponsors to law enforcement, yes, children could be found today, but they won't do it.
Why wouldn't they do that?
This is what we are trying to raise the alarm on. They won't do it. They give nobody access to their data, not even their oversight agency. So every agency in the federal government has a watchdog, has somebody looking at their programs. But HHS is a quarter of the United States budget. Most people don't realize that. So of every dollar of taxes that you send in, almost 25 cents of that goes to the Department of Health and Human Services. So when you're talking that much money, it's simply impossible to oversee every program in every single way. But HHS does not even allow the watchdog access to the data. And that's the Office of Inspector General. They give nobody access. So nobody's really overseeing the program. Anybody with law enforcement experience, which HHS is not. They're not law enforcement. They don't have investigative authority. And so they don't realize how bad their system is being abused by criminal actors. But if real law enforcement could look at the data, they could see just like that. Who are the criminals? Who are the doors we need to go kick in today? Because many of the sponsors have no legal presence, but they have criminal history in their own country. So law enforcement would be able to see that, but they won't let them look because there is no rug big enough in the universe to hide the criminality under.
I've even heard you talk about the vetting process and how shallow that is. Like I live in Houston, Texas. The largest illegal immigrant community is just miles down the road from me right here, the Colony Ridge over there. And routinely they find houses all over the city that are packed full of people who've come across that border illegally. So you never know what environments these people are going to be brought into. And surely there's no way for us to know about the backgrounds of these people, right? Like, what is the vetting process like?
So the vetting process with Border Patrol is different than the vetting process with HHS. But essentially right now, our entire border has become a processing center, not a vetting center. Because as you know, we've let members of the terrorist watch list into the country. So that should give you an idea of how bad the vetting is right now in this moment. I mean, that's just absolutely unacceptable. In your home, I'm sure at night, most people put a lock on the door. And when somebody knocks on their door, they look outside. Do I know this person? Not know this person? We just don't let anybody in. But sadly, that's what's happening now. So one of the things is that everybody seems to believe this is humanitarian. And I don't understand it now. Now, looking on this side of it and understanding the problems that it's causing for the people. But I was reading an article yesterday, and it said that Doctors Without Borders is reporting that more than 1 in 3 who attempt this journey to get to our border, just to get here, are raped en route. 1 in 3. There are large criminal networks who are facilitating the movement. Think about it. How does a child who's 5 years old, 4 years old, how does a child navigate leaving their home country to make it to the United States border alone? Alone. They have to pay the cartel networks. They're brought by guides, coyotes, who are criminals, who give them the name and the number of a person here in the United States. Children are given information en route because that's what the children were telling us. Yeah, so it's really sad that there's no serious vetting of the sponsors to where these children ultimately go. Yes,
I got to be honest, Tara. I got to be honest. It feels hopeless. It just feels hopeless. There is something that can be done, and you and others are leading the way on that. It's the thing that we can all do. If you're an American citizen right now, you can do this thing today. If you're not an American citizen, you can share this with all of your contacts in America so that they could do this today. We don't want to see this happen on our watch anymore. Well, then this is the thing we got to do, and I'm going to share that thing with you and more from Tara coming up right after this break. Hey, there is a war for the souls of mankind. It is the final confrontation. We are in those last and final days, and you must pick a side. And right now, we see the side of evil lining up against that of good. And if you don't speak out, if you don't do what you know to be right, then the day is coming when the time of mercy passes and the time of judgment will be upon us. And as the gospel told us today, we'll have to give an account for everything we have done with this life that God has blessed us with. I am inspired by a few. This story is so hard. I just gotta be honest with you. This story is so stinging hard. 80,000+ children lost to this evil and diabolical world. And if we don't do something about that, God help us all. AmericasFuture.net is a great website. I'm going to share the link to in the show notes with you, but you should go to it right now, AmericasFuture.net. Tara Rodas joins us. She's a whistleblower. She had the greatest intentions to do the best thing with American taxpayer dollars, but unfortunately, she discovered that bad actors are manipulating the whole case, and it continues to this day, and there is something that we can do about that. Tara, thanks again for being on with us. I wish this was easier.
Absolutely.
I really do. This is a horrible reality. And it's happening on our watch, in our own backyards, and it feels hopeless. It feels like there's nothing we can do. So I ask, what can we do, Tara?
Yeah, well, Joe, without God, this is a hopeless situation because evil is real, right? And there is a war on children. There absolutely is. And they need people to stand up for them. I hope your listeners and your viewers understand, if we do not mobilize, no one is coming for these children. No one. The government for 3 years has attempted to cover this up. And when you brought on brave whistleblower Aaron Stevenson, it was for the bravery of that man of God who stood up and told the truth and lost his job. But because he stood up, we were sitting on the Pomona Fairplex and we heard his disclosure. We heard him say, these children that are being processed by us are going to MS-13 and gang members. And MS-13, for anyone who recently heard the interview between Tucker and Bukele, MS-13 did not start off as a satanic organization, but they are now. When they raid their homes, they find altars. They sacrifice human life. And we, the United States government, with the tax dollars of Americans, are giving children to these gang members, these evil people. But God, he had Aaron at the Department of Homeland Security to reveal the truth. We just need people to tell the truth. And that allowed us to know what to look for. And in 2 weeks, we found MS-13. It was true. We wish it wasn't true. But for 3 years, we've been sounding the alarm. Me, Deb White, Aaron, Carlos, Myra, all of us have been sounding the alarm for 3 years because we believe that judgment is coming. And we also know that unless we mobilize, no one's coming to help these children. So we're starting a movement. And America's Future, thank you so much for sharing their website, americasfuture.net. Right now, 45 senators, and this is after, remember, 3 years of fighting and 3 years of sounding the alarm. They have come together. They've put a resolution together. They have entered it, and the goal is to vote on it this session. So we need 6 more legislators to sign on to this. We need 6 more senators to say yay on what's called the CRA. And what that's going to allow the Senate to do is take back the power to create the rules for the program that's created this problem, created rampant trafficking of children, created children being missing and gone and dead. We need people to call their senators and say, vote yay on the CRA. We need people, and you have a voice. Everyone in the sound of this show now knows about child trafficking. If you will just call your senators, if you will just make those calls, you can go to, if you don't know the phone number of your senator, when you go to americasfuture.net, you click on our Stop the Shame campaign. It's right there. And there's an interactive map. You click on it. It gives you the number of your senators. You just make the call. All you have to say is save the children, vote yay on the CRA. That's it. That's all we're asking. And your voice can save the lives of children. It's not hopeless. When God's people stand up for what's right, it's never hopeless. But aside from that, yeah, these children, no one's coming for them if we do not pass this resolution using the CRA. No one's coming for them, but your audience can make a difference.
Let me ask you, how much support are you receiving from both sides of the aisle on this campaign of yours?
So it is a bipartisan effort. However, yes, praise God for that. It's independents and Republicans right now. We're hoping to get some Democrats who are going to be brave and step forward and realize this is not a political issue.
Exactly.
This is an evil versus good issue. This is we need to save these kids now. We need to save these kids now. So we're hoping that brave Democrats are going to come forward and sign on to the resolution and vote yay for the CRA.
We've gone too far into our political silos in this country. We're the most divided we've ever been, in my opinion. And, even though these kids need to be saved, I mean, yes, the border is out of control. That doesn't mean we sit by and watch 85,000 children go into the oblivion. We can't do that on our watch. And yet, because of politics, we are not going to support something like this. That also is evil, in my opinion. And I wish I could say that if we just voted the right way this next term, then this will all go away. It won't, will it, Tara? No matter who wins this next election, this won't be fixed if we allow all of this to continue.
Yes, if we allow this to continue, what's going to happen is the rule that the senators are trying to stop is going to become permanent law. And that means that children are going to be trafficked more efficiently at higher numbers to more criminal elements because they have removed questions from the process now. They've actually created with their rules. These are your government people working to create rules to make it easier to traffic the children. They actually created a position called a unification specialist, not reunification. So reunification means we're putting the child back together with a person they were separated from, from their family. But they've created a unification specialist so that they can reunite children to people they have never met. And It is very sad. If your listeners, if they Google Carlos Arellano, he is the whistleblower who was transporting children, understand, as young as 3 months old. 3 months old, he's transporting children. And the children, when they can talk, older, they're like, please, I don't want to go here. I don't know this person. Don't make me go. So we need people to stand up now. Your voice makes a difference. And so, Joe, I thank you for sounding the alarm on government-sponsored, taxpayer-funded child trafficking and for helping your audience get in the fight. We have a nationwide campaign, americasfuture.net, and vote yay on the CRA. So thank you, Joe.
Yay for the CRA. Tell your congressman, tell your senator, call them today, americasfuture.net. It's the thing that we can actually do to try to impact this story. americasfuture.net. Tara Rodas, God bless you. God love you. Appreciate your witness. You're an amazing woman. Thanks for being the hero today.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.